Hello, everybody. Now we have audio. Yes. Everybody Loves Raymond 360 Live. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. A lot going on, a lot to talk about. Did a little survey of our mugs, and we're tallying the results. For those of you that didn't see the mug question, it was this: 1, 2, or 3. And someone asked, it's for AIS, which is one of our most popular things. Again, this is backwards because we're on Instagram. But we surveyed, which one would you prefer, 1, 2, or 3? And then it's AIS with it either in quotes, in parentheses, without quotes, or in all caps. And then somebody, I think Karen in England, brought up, can you spell out the word ass? ASS. So we can, I think, but what is your vote on that? We have a lot more votes to count. Hello, everybody. Hello, Donnell. Hello, Leo. Leo, your vote is for number 2. Hello, Ontario, Canada. Daniela. Wow, 70 in Toronto. Very nice. Hello, Karen in Plymouth, England. Hello, Gil. How am I sounding? I will, when I meet you in person, I owe you a drink or whatever you would like as a payback for being my England-based tech. Hello, Jasmine. Hello. Am I wearing my lucky shirt? Yes, excellent. So I'm very excited today. We're going to be joined by Mary Ellen Bosche, who is the one of the members of the wardrobe team on Everybody Loves Raymond, and there are a lot of wardrobe questions that I cannot answer. Hello, Tucker, a fantastic writer on Everybody Loves Raymond. Many of your, including the Lucky Suit, many of your favorite episodes, the baggage episode, etc. Donnell, don't spell out ass. Stay classy. Okay. I wonder if that is going to be the vote. That's our thought. Our thought was, don't spell it out, because at least people can have it around, and if small children who are old enough to read but too young to be exposed to the hideous nature of the vagrancies of primetime television. So, yes, Robert's lucky suit. We will talk about that as well. Let's see here. Yes, hello, everybody. And then we have more mugs. Tomorrow or maybe later today, I will another mug, which is a quote mug, which is a mug with as many quotes as we can fit onto one mug, because there are so many great quotes. Hello, Mary Ellen.
Hello.
I'm so, thank you for taking the time. And there's so many questions we have. I'm just greeting a lot of the people. Hello, Texas. Hello, Mary Ellen, where did you grow up?
Boston, south of Boston.
Oh, south of Boston. What town? Because people...
Weymouth,
oh,
Mass.
Weymouth, Mass. Oh, very nice, very nice. So now, Mary Ellen, we're going to talk about wardrobe, but there's a lot of questions. We put up a thing about mugs, and you'll get your complimentary I was a guest mug. But that's, you're seeing some of the residuals there, because AIS, which you remember, is a very common slogan, ass in seat, that a lot of people use. But then we have a lot, and one of the things relevant to wardrobe is style, of the mug, of everything has to have a certain style. And I think we're going to get into all of your history in the wardrobe department, et cetera. And, I felt a little pressure that I should dress up a notch better because you're the guest, and I shouldn't submit, I shouldn't feel, any pressure from you, because you never applied it in person. So
I still are wearing shorts on the bottom. Good.
Okay. Yeah, I never got the stink eye from you for the clothing I was wearing. So Mary Ellen, you were on Everybody Loves Raymond, you were on Seinfeld, you were on Star Trek, a lot of history, many more shows, including right now. But and I always like to do this, I like to hear about how people even got into the field, because some people watching are just pure fans of the show and they just want to hear funny stuff. Some people want to hear about specifics of writing or wardrobe. But to me, as the photographer who took, as a writer, but photographer, and sorry, for those of you that just joined, this is Tom Caltabiano. I was a writer on Everybody Loves Raymond, and we're talking to Mary Ellen Bosche, who was in the wardrobe department. But for me, as a photographer, I started to notice how perfectly coordinated, in a subtle way, all the main characters were when we were doing color tests for the book. And so I posted a picture of Robert holding a plunger, and that was our color test. All the characters are there, all with really good colors that I took it for granted while the show is going on. So let's go back to the beginning, Marion. How do you get into this field?
Oh, I like to draw, and I like to draw costumes, and it was the age of Sonny and Cher and different variety shows on TV, so it was kind of inspiring, I guess. And then I went to college for it, and I started working in theater, but it's hard to make a living in theater, so my husband and I came out to LA in the 80s. And
can I just stop you for a second? What college, because there's no college course back then, at least, for comedy writing per se. You know what I mean? It's not really a career path. But for college, for wardrobe, where did you go to study that?
I went to Boston University College School of Fine Arts, and it's kind of like the NYU program or the Carnegie Mellon program. They were all very similar. But it was definitely focused on theater, entirely theater.
And did they have a TV department or movie department?
No.
Okay.
I don't think it was anything like that. There was a communications department that was a completely different major in another building, more associated with computers.
Oh, okay.
And strange.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you're just talking about making a living. It's known for everybody watching. If you go into theater, it's a good way to not make any money. Now, if you love something, you're going to do, people don't go into teaching kindergarten because they want a giant house,
Yes.
But so you can't, but in the industry, in college, at least, I'm surprised that there was no awareness of, or no push that way.
It was kind of snobby even. I bet at UCLA it would have been pushed a little bit more, but I'm not sure it was.
Yeah.
Just a snobbishness.
So, by the way, off of that, for people watching, if you don't know the world of theater, etc., theater is like the legitimate. It's looked down upon. Hollywood is looked down upon. Like theater is the real art. See, I'm not speaking for you, Mary Ellen. I'm telling you my my perception. So if you're on Broadway, you're something. If you do TV, that's a little bit icky, and it was so much more back then, because you never had movie stars crossing over onto television. Like a movie star on TV was just very rare, very rare. Okay. Right. So you decide, hey, I don't want to not be able to eat every day. And you and your husband move out here.
Yes. Yep. And I got a job at Center Theater Group, but then I got into the union with NBC.
Okay, well, what is Center Theater Group?
Oh, that's our big theater group in LA that includes the Mark Taper Forum and the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, and the LA Opera. And so it's a big like regional theater group. Yeah. And so it's a lot. It's like where people in theater often work in the beginning.
Yeah. And so for people, because since we have people from around the world, Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, Mark Taper Forum, these are beautiful venues. And even I think the Oscars might have come from the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion.
Originally, yes, they used
to.
Yeah.
Well, somewhere in the 70s, I would say, because I think originally it was like 1932 in a hotel room in the Roosevelt Hotel. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then you're in the theater, and then hello, Kim. Kim is here from Set Dressing. Hello, Kim. So then you do the theater, and then you said you got into NBC. What was that transition?
Well, that was so I was a cutter fitter. I was making clothes and altering clothes for this. All the Santa Barbara was one of the soap operas and Days of Our Lives, and all the soap operas, Punky Brewster at the beginning when she was a little girl.
Yeah.
I used to make the dog costumes for her, and that was fun. And then I moved into Ice Capades and got in the roster, and that's when I started on Star Trek, and I was a cutter fitter on Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Well, then, sorry, when you're doing TV, it's all of a sudden much better money.
Oh yeah, like yes, we bought a boat, we bought 2 kids, we did it all. It was great. It was a great life. I mean, LA used to be very inexpensive to live, kind of too.
Yeah. And is your husband in the industry as well?
He's a carpenter. He manufactures for museums at this point. He's done a lot of things, but that's, yeah, we met in theater, and he was the master carpenter, and I was wardrobe.
Oh, nice.
So,
A perfect yeah. And let me ask something just on a personal note. Did you give your husband a lot of advice on how he should dress?
Well, there was a moment about 15 years ago, about 20 years into our relationship, where he went upstairs, changed his socks to match his shoes, and came back down. And yeah, he did learn. He did evolve at least that far.
Yeah.
With my influence.
So
yeah.
a proud moment for you then.
Yeah.
Well, only because it's a very common, I'm going to generalize here because you have to in life, but it's a very common thing for a woman meets a man and is like, I will fix him and I will make him better. Because men, just clothing wise, men, it's not usually on their radar. Some men, yes, but if you're going to look at a bell curve of how men dress, women usually help men and, you know, shake their heads and go, sandals with socks. Yeah.
A little bit.
I don't think so. Yeah. So then, sorry, only because it's Everybody Loves Raymond we're talking about, but Star Trek is huge. It's a monstrous.
Yeah, it never dies.
Yeah. And so you were on Star Trek Next Generation?
Next Generation, I was a cutter fitter, then I worked on the set, and then I went on to Deep Space Nine and worked as a key costumer, they say. That's the title, where you fit all the background and fit all the costumes and make sure everything gets done between the supervisor and the set and the designer and the set.
And let's go back just because I know nothing. Sorry. A cutter fitter does what?
Oh, right. It's, well, we make the patterns, and like, so we get a sketch from the designer, and then we have to make the patterns and get the fabric and cut the fabric and, you know, make sure it gets sewn correctly and fit it and finish it.
Okay. And so you're sitting there, they're getting, this is now we're talking about Star Trek, and they're by the way, that's day one. That's the beginning of the series. You were there?
No, it was the second year. It was with Dorinda Rice Wood was the designer. And
okay.
Then I came back as a key costumer when Bob Blackman was the designer.
Okay. And that's a promotion, for lack of a better thing, to be the key designer.
Yeah. It's a great position. It's a really good position. It's fun.
So then let me ask you this before we get into Everybody Loves Raymond. What are the materials you're using on Star Trek versus what you're using to dress Marie?
Marie was the best, though. Very different. I mean, I would shop downtown at leather shops, and for Star Trek, we had a lot of leather and a lot of different crazy fabrics and like surfboard materials like that we found, and a lot of resins and things. We were always building everything. But Marie, we did find a stash of vintage fabric at International Silks and Woolens that were mostly Marie's blouses.
We'll get to that, Mary Ellen.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to that. But just to finish on Star Trek, because that's a little piece of information, because I do see a lot of people are saying, where did I saw not even on my site, on these question sites where they go, where did Marie get her clothes? And there's all these guesses out there, which I didn't know what the answer was. So now you're on Star Trek, you're on there for a long time, and then that show ends.
Well, I adopted a child, so I wanted to get out. It was like 75 to 80 hours a week.
Oh,
it was a little much. Try to be a mother too. So
yeah. And where was the studio?
Paramount. It's at Paramount Pictures.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I just moved across. I went to CBS Radford for Seinfeld for a year.
Okay.
Of it.
Okay. Well, let's go back. I still want to explore Star Trek a little bit, Because on Star Trek, are you a Star Trek fan? Because, you know, their fans are, in a good way, obsessed with the show. So when you were walking on it, was it more than just a job at the beginning, or no, you weren't?
Oh, I was excited. Yeah, I was very excited. And we didn't even know if it was really going to do anything because it was just the second season. So a lot of people didn't know if it was really, it was one of the first, back then it was on almost a streaming like network. It was the new Paramount network.
Uh-huh.
Viacom had started. This was
Okay.
So we weren't even sure if anyone was watching it because it wasn't one of the 4 networks. It's after Fox, you know, it was like
Yeah.
smaller than Fox. But it did I guess it did okay.
Well, I mean, it's part of the franchise. So it's funny to hear you say we didn't even know if it was going to last. Now, but the first time you have to dress or do any interaction with Patrick Stewart, for example, are you like a little bit nervous, or are you like?
I was nervous. He's very, very impressive as a person. Like he walks into a room and it's like, wow, who is he? And we didn't know who he was at all. He was just an actor from the theater in England for the most part.
Yeah.
But he was super nice, super approachable. All of them were. It was an exceptional cast, and exceptionally lovely people that we really got close to and treasured. And it was before cell phones. So everyone would sit outside. Most of us were smoking cigarettes. I didn't always smoke, but I'd smoke if everyone else was. But you'd be sitting outside smoking cigarettes while they were lighting. Now everyone goes to their room and gets on their cell phone. So there was we were all talking all the time and just hanging out, and it was special.
Oh, that's great. So there was more of a coffee break versus now you're focused on your phone. So I have to go back. This answers one of our fans' questions, and it's a funny phrase you said. So Leo saying, how does Hollywood look at theater? Theater is almost not on the radar of Hollywood at all. They're just like not paying attention. Theater, Hollywood doesn't pay attention to theater so much. I'm speaking in in generalities, but theater looks down at Hollywood. So when you said we didn't know who Patrick Stewart was, he was just a guy from the theater in England. That's a very funny statement because it's so revered, right? So what they do, what Hollywood will do, is find great actors in theater.
Obviously, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So theater, you have to look at it also as Hollywood is so much about making money. I'm not, there's artists, et cetera, but they are looking for something that will make money. So if there's a play that they think they can adapt and make into a hit show, great. But other than that, I don't think theater is on anyone's radar in general in Hollywood.
Yeah, just in casting, I guess. Casting's the
in casting. And just as a little side note, we were talking to a writer last week who was on Friends, and he was talking about being in college and changing some of the lines of a writer, of a theater, playwright. And you just never do that. The word is completely revered in theater, whereas in TV and movies, more so in movies, they would go, how did this writer get on the set? Like, what is he doing there? It's just not.
True.
Yeah, it's a very, and I don't know how to explain that from how that happened. Okay.
I think
so now
it changed a little since the writer's strike, but we did. Can I mention a little story on Star Trek and writers? And
yes,
on one of our rap parties at Deep Space Nine, we were doing it on Deep Space Nine. There was a Ferengi that had a bar, so we did the Christmas party at the bar in the Ferengi bar. So that was super cool, and they did a game show like thing where the 4 head writers of Deep Space Nine stood up, and the actors were asked to name the writers, and they couldn't do it.
Wow.
I don't think that happens anymore. I don't know. Maybe it does, but it seems like we know the writers more, but maybe that's just comedy. But
well, on multi-camera sitcoms, and we can get into that when we get to Everybody Loves Raymond, multi-camera sitcoms, the writer is really the king of that world. Yes. And so, as you know, on Everybody Loves Raymond, Phil Rosenthal was the showrunner. And so his word was it. There was no other word. Now, having said that, a showrunner can get fired, but for the most part, a successful show that showrunner is invaluable. And so, so you do revere them versus a director on a sitcom just by the nature of the beast. The directors change, et cetera. And so in movies, it's like the director is everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So now I want to reiterate a little bit. You were working crazy hours. You had you adopted a child. You want to be a good mother. So you bow out of Star Trek 9 because 80 hours a week is tough.
Yeah. It was, I left, I think this 5th season of Deep Space Nine or something.
Okay. Then you go to Seinfeld. Now, let's just, for everybody, Seinfeld started slowly. It's a sitcom based in New York. It started, I think it was season 3 or 4 of Seinfeld before they really started taking off. But by the last season, it was such a popular show. It went off the air as #1, which is a very, very rare thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, which is a very, very rare thing to do. And so that would seem to be a coveted job. How do you land a job on the #1 show?
Well, I wanted the 3-day-a-week job. So not everybody wants that. So that worked out great. And it was a friend of a friend, somebody that had worked on Star Trek before. So we knew each other. And it just worked out. It just was that moment. And it was perfect because I got to be for the shooting days and the prep day. And
so who leaves such a great job?
Well, somebody who probably wanted a full-time job.
Yeah. So let me explain to people just so they know. A sitcom shoots in like 5 days or 4 days, and some of the departments aren't there for the whole time. So the writers are there the whole time, the production crew, the probably set dressing, etc. They're there the full time. The camera crew is there part-time. The wardrobe department, makeup department, they're all, and we say part-time, it's 3 days basically, or 2 days.
Well, with us, if you're on the set, you might do 2 or 3 days. But I also did the alterations. So they kept me 5 days a week.
Okay, great.
So it was kind of a perfect job.
Yeah.
On Raymond. On Seinfeld, it was 3 days a week.
Okay. On Raymond, it was 5 days.
Yeah.
So now you come off of Seinfeld, just so you know, it was, for the viewers, it was national news, Seinfeld leaving. I mean, it was giant. And
great. We had a photographer there every day taking pictures. They wrote a book about it, and it's just huge. It was massive. Yeah.
Well, they had, again, some people love Seinfeld here who are Everybody Loves Raymond fans. Other people don't love Seinfeld. But I was a huge Seinfeld fan. And of course, Ray and I both had worked with him a little bit. But it was the first show we saw, Seinfeld, where we're like, oh, wow, these people are talking like real people, like people that we know. Okay, when it first premiered. By the end of Seinfeld, it was such a juggernaut. And it was such a proof case of let these creative people run and do what they want to do, Larry David and Jerry and all of the other people. But it was, I think the ratings was like, I don't know, 60, 70 million people watched the finale, something like that.
There were only 3 channels back then, 2 or 4, right?
Well, ish. Yeah, cable was creeping up. But for the most part, yes, it was a much, bigger thing. So then what I was going to say is they did publish a book, and I think it's David Hume Kennerly, who was a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer. And so he approached Seinfeld, he had been in Vietnam and all this stuff. And he said, let me shoot your finale. So that book was published, the book you're referencing. So it's funny that you even remember.
Well, I have 3 of the pictures with me in the cast that I bought some of the pictures that he had taken.
Okay. And only because people watching know me. And again, this is Tom Caltabiano. I'm talking to Mary Ellen Bosche, talking about wardrobe and her time on Seinfeld. But I was on the show as a writer, but I was taking so many pictures that I just never was without my camera. So it was kind of it became, I disappeared with my camera.
Yes, it was. It was great. And I would love to, I've seen the pictures, and I'm in a few of those too, and I love it. I just love.
I'll dig some out with you, Marilyn, because you're probably in about 1,000. I just have to scan them. But yeah, my hope for that guy, for David Hume Kennerly, even though he's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, it's got to be weird to not be. Everybody knew who I was, but for him as an outsider, it's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
All right, so now Seinfeld ends. You can't get higher in the TV. world. But let's now you have a chance to go on Everybody Loves Raymond, because I want to go back to Seinfeld a little bit, but let's get to Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Now, how do you end up there?
Well, I since I could sew, and they wanted somebody to come in and kind of help pull and help and be a kind of all-around costumer. We had very few alterations, so it worked out best if I could just do them in-house. So it gave me a little bit of an edge to come and work there. And
But who knows? Yeah, who knows you? How do you apply?
Anybody. I don't know how I mean, I just answered. I think I just started telling in this business. You make a few phone calls and the word gets around that you're available, and you just it's never more than, I swear in my whole life it's never been more than 3 or 4 texts or phone calls to get our next job. It's just everybody knows each other. So.
Oh, you're very lucky.
Yes, I'm very lucky. I've been incredibly lucky.
And so then, sorry, in the industry, it's you. So just to go back, you said a phrase that people won't be to pull clothes. What does that mean?
Right. Well, so I would go down to the Warner Brothers wardrobe department, which is massive. It is the biggest. It is probably one of the biggest still. And you know you're having a character that's coming up, and you'll find out their sizes and and you talk to the designer, who was Simon Tuke at the time, and he would tell us what he wanted for the character. So we'd have to, write all these notes, and he'd also be very focused on color, as it's obvious when you see it. We tried to avoid the blue and the red. That was Patty and Ray. And then we'd just go and pull for the fittings. So we'd have fittings usually Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'd have our reading on Monday, right?
Yeah.
So and then we'd get all the notes from the designer, and then we would, on Tuesday or Wednesday, we'd pull whatever we could, and then I would do the alterations, and then we'd start filming on Thursday and Friday, and then we went to a 4-day week at one point.
Yeah. And so again, for anybody that's watching, if you have a chance to do the Warner Brothers tour, they'll take you to the wardrobe department. And so what Mary Ellen's talking about is, I think it's under the basement. Yeah. It's in the basement. Okay. Yeah. So you take the tour, you're on a tram, you get off the tram, and then you go underneath this building, and it is a, air conditioned, giant, just clothes after clothes. So when Mary Ellen said we pulled the clothes, she's getting the clothes ready for the week. So then, and if the clothes weren't available at the wardrobe of Warner Brothers, yes, you have to source them from where?
Oh, we went, our supervisor and key customer would go shopping, and they'd often go to Nordstrom. Because it was kind of middle class without being Neiman Marcus upper middle.
Yeah.
Like it was more within the realm of the characters.
Yeah.
And we also, in the stores in LA, we have something called studio services, where you go into the office in the basement of the store usually and sign in, and you can pull all these clothes off the racks and put them all in order, and they let you sign them out without actually buying them, so that you go to a fitting with 2 racks of clothes, and you pick out the half a rack that you need, and you return the rest of them like the next day. So it's kind of a time consuming thing, but it's lovely because it's less paperwork and less trouble for everybody. So
yeah.
That's something that was constantly used every Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah. And so I'm going to go back a little bit.
Oh,
no, that was perfect, Mary Ellen. Just so people understand, I think on Raymond, at least, there were usually 3 wardrobe people.
Yes.
Right?
It was tiny. It was tiny.
Yeah. It's small because for the most part, and now I'm just getting into the bigger picture of the work week, on a multicam sitcom like Raymond, which is very well run by Phil Rosenthal, you have very good hours. When you're on a Star Trek, no matter how it's a single camera, no matter how well it's run, if it's run the same, it's like a movie, which means it's much, much slower. And the reason for that is when you're shooting on a multicam sitcom and you're in a kitchen and you're shooting a scene where Ray and Deborah are having a fight, you shoot it and there's 4 cameras covering it, and you're done after 2 takes. On a single camera, on Star Trek, let's say, I'm making this up, but if we shot Everybody Loves Raymond as a single camera, you would set up and shoot Ray talking. Then you're done with Ray. Now you relight for Patty, and you would have to swing the cameras. And that, so we're already twice as long to get that. So the show that Mary Ellen was talking about on Star Trek, it's a much labor-intensive show. And so on Raymond, you also now have a middle-class family, and they're living at home, and there's very few outside guest actors.
Which we love.
Yes. So the fact that there's 3 people in the wardrobe department, I would assume there occasionally you have to pull in some other help.
Yes, occasionally, but really very seldom. But we didn't have a lot of background. We didn't have a lot of. It was a superbly written show. Like every word seemed to make a difference in how funny it was, how the story was told, and it made it all clear for us too. Picking out costumes, like, well, obviously that character's like this. Like we knew.
Yeah. I'm going to take that as a compliment to the right, Mary Ellen.
They were the best. It was. I've been on a lot of good shows, but you got to admit, 25 of those, we were doing 22 and 25
episodes per year. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost impossible to be that funny for any 20 minutes, let alone 24 of them.
Yes. No wonder you got hired a lot, Mary Ellen. You're very good at complimenting. So, by the way, so here's a question. Why would they choose a single camera? So if you're talking about the person that is looking for a job, you're just looking for work, but it's a style choice. So the multicam sitcom goes way back to I Love Lucy, which was the beginning. And so they didn't exist before I Love Lucy. They really invented the format because the normal cinematographer would go, you can't shoot this way. How are we going to, we have to light Ray and then we have to light Patty. We can't light. So they invented flat lighting where they kind of flood it. Okay. So, but not everything lends itself to multicam. The greatest job in Hollywood, as far as hours, is a multicam sitcom. For the actor, for the crew, nobody is happier than a multi-camera sitcom. And right after Everybody Loves Raymond, I worked on a single camera sitcom that didn't go. And I'm there at 4 a.m. and I'm like, this is crazy. How can you be funny at 4 a.m? You know, the whole crew is there and it's, you know, you're going home and the sun is rising. I was like, wow, this is tough. But so the short is style. That's why they picked single camera or multi-camera. So, all right. So now let's get into the real nitty gritty, Mary Ellen. You have to, yes, your first day at Everybody Loves Raymond, it's already a hit show, right? And do you remember meeting, because we want to know who was the most challenging to dress, and I know everyone was nice, so I know you're not saying anything untoward, but you're meeting Doris Roberts for the first time. And do you remember that?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. You try to be cool, but you do fan it out. I mean, we're there because we love being in the business. You know, it's not for everybody. And it was great. And, you know, Peter Boyle was huge. Like, I was freaking out. And I thought I was pretty good. I hope I was cool. But Marie and Peter were very good. And, but, you know, Patty and Raymond are kind of intimidating. And Brad, he's a big, scary guy. He's like a lot of charisma. They're all of it. It's like a lot when you're with those people. It's a lot. It's intense. But it was, and everybody was kind. You know, like they could have been kind of snotty if they weren't, you know, they didn't know me. And they were so kind, so nice to have that.
Yeah.
You just
so then
scared.
Yes. And so you think, yes, it was known as a very friendly, kind set. And I think Ray and Phil set that tone of, you know, they're both very nice people. And Phil's motto was just be nice on the show.
Yeah. In fact, I didn't understand why they were telling me who's Phil, the showrunner, who's Phil, which one's Phil? Like, cause he was so inclusive. You wouldn't think that he was the king. It's like, there's differences when nobody talks to Jerry when he walks in. Very nice person, but you know, like nobody's, you know, but Phil, you wouldn't even know. He's like, did you get the tuna salad? It was great. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, and I will say this because Jerry, so I've spent a little bit of time with Jerry Seinfeld, with Ray,
Yeah.
and he's not, he was an idol when I was starting stand up. So I'm not saying, but he's not known as a warm and fuzzy guy. And,
He's got a lot
the,
on his mind. He's got a lot on his mind.
sure. And Phil and Ray are kind of the opposite. Ray will go out of his way. He would, if he didn't say goodbye to you, or he thought he would be like, I forgot to say goodbye to Mary Ellen. I'm like, I think she'll be all right, Ray. I think you don't have to worry about that. And Phil also would be like, make sure the crew has everything to eat, so it really was that. And you have a lot more, you've probably been on shows or pilots or something where there was terrible tension and like things aren't going well,
Yeah,
know?
it can be tough, especially pilots. Pilots are rough. But yeah,
Yeah.
coming up to a sixth season, like people are confident, they're happy. The ratings are great. That's lovely. Everyone's happy. That is good.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for in show business, is to have because when it gets ugly is when the ratings are declining and everyone's trying to go, how do we fix this? So
Yeah.
now you meet, you see Doris for the first time. Let's talk about Doris's clothes. Let's clear this up. Did she buy it? Did you guys buy it off the rack? How much influence did she have? Let's really explore.
She knew what she looked good in, and I was she had these Vicky V that was I think it's VIKKI and then capital VI Vicky V little separates that were knit pants and a knit tank top, and she knew that if she would wear those, so we'd buy like 3 or 4 new ones each season, and she'd take the new ones home and wear the old ones still. But we never said anything. Who cares? There was enough money for that.
Yes.
And then we would go and swatch. We would get swatches of fabric. So we would pick out fabric, buy like a little quarter yard, so you could see the repeat and you'd see the colors on her, and she'd help pick. And Simon Took, the designer, knew just what he wanted. It was all very clear, like what style. It was a bit of a vintage vibe without dating her, because she was a very modern woman, really, but in a weird way. She was, well, she is a person too, but she was and then we had all those blouses. Most of them, 90% of them, were custom made that we had done, and we'd pick out the buttons specifically and make sure the length was always perfect. And so she just knew that she could just put on any blouse in the room and it was perfect.
So then the materials, you hit upon it a little bit before. Where did you find those materials? And sorry, I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. I want to remind everybody that there's our friend Phil. Yeah, and if you watch him on Netflix, he has a new season out this week, and he has a book coming out. So somebody feed Phil the book.
Yeah, such a great show too.
So that a great show on Netflix. So now, you alluded to finding custom material for Doris.
Yeah. So International Silks and Woolens, which we call ISW, is it's right over in Beverly Hills, based on the cusp of Beverly Hills, really West Hollywood, I guess. But they're a big company, like 3 and 4 stories of fabrics and lovely fabrics. But they also had bought out some old stores that were going out of business, and they kept all these special like rayon and silk blends, prints, vintage looking things, actual vintage fabrics, and they put them in a secret room, and they were just for the designers to look at. So we actually bought from the same room on Seinfeld for Kramer's shirts, and then it was kind of fun to go back into the room and look for the Marie
patterns.
Yeah.
So were Kramer's shirts custom made?
Yeah, a lot of them were. Most of them were, because it was always trying to find that odd little fabric that like had a strange, something from the 40s feel or something.
Yeah. And were there materials from the 40s and 50s, or
many. It was I think it was one of the stores was called Beverly Hills Silks and Woolens. That was a great place right on Rodeo Drive practically. And they had so many beautiful, but they went out of business, and we still needed all those fabrics. So somebody bought them from LA.
Yeah. Well, I will say this for those watching that don't know geography. Let's say you're in Australia right now. What what Mary Ellen's describing is you would think in Los Angeles, there's certain sections like downtown in Los Angeles, there's places in the valley where you would see a place where you could get materials. But the idea that it's adjacent to Beverly Hills and even the word Rodeo Drive is funny to me to hear that.
Yeah, because it's just so
posh.
It was a fabric. Yeah, it's so posh now. But at the, even 30 years ago, I went there when it was just closing, and it was right, it was just getting out of its price range, fabric,
oh yeah, to be there. So then, sorry, just going back to bouncing back and forth for Seinfeld, for Kramer's shirts, because you're in it on the 9th season, they must have a huge inventory of shirts. And so were you presenting it as, oh, look, let's try this one?
No, because they wear out and you get sick of looking at them, and the actors also get sick of the clothes. They don't want to see something in the 10th year,
Yeah.
So we'd always make sure there were 5 or 6 new shirts.
Yeah. And then you would have a pattern for Michael. I know nothing about it. So
yeah, there'd be a pattern, and we'd go to the same person. It was a different person. I don't even remember who that was. But it was someone who worked at home and made all his shirts. And then there was another, this is also Marie. It was union people though. They just worked from home. And the same with Marie's blouses. We went to a place in Silver Lake, which is not too far.
Yeah.
In a crazy little cottage that all those cottages, now they're probably all torn down by now in mansions. But at the time it was a wacky little drive steep hill and get into this place, and she would make the clothes.
This is a fascinating fact to me. So there somewhere in Silver Lake, which is a little suburb of Los Angeles, is one person making an outfit that's going to be seen by millions and millions on Kramer or on Marie.
Yeah, all the time. We do that all the time.
Wow. And so let me ask you this. Because you mentioned already that you could sew, which was a big thing. Do most people in wardrobe sew?
Not that many. I wouldn't even say half, probably. It's not that common.
Yeah.
We need so many more costumers that don't need to sew. It seems like we use a lot more of them than.
Okay. And you have these subcontract, and just only because it sounds so. You're talking about a gigantic hit show, and it sounds so. We have to see if Lisa's home and can make.
Oh yeah, absolutely, every day, yeah. Yeah.
And so, and I assume these people were reliable.
And you leave them on the back of the fence. Yeah, the hook's on the back of the fence. Just leave it on the back of the fence, and I'll get it. And now I shouldn't. Now everyone's going to go looking in fences for fabulous clothes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we leave it back out in the fence and pick it up.
Let me.
It never rains. Like you don't have to worry about that.
It does seldom rain here. So let me just, Mary Ellen, just because I love having this conversation, but let me just go back and ask and look at some of the questions before we get too far. I'm going to scroll back because when this posts, the questions go away. Do the actors from Leo in Toronto? Do the actors have any say on their wardrobe?
Oh, sure. They should have some say. I mean, as long as it's not written. If it's written in the script that you have to wear, like we had just the other day, we had to find some underwear with pineapples on it, and the person didn't feel like pineapples would be their character. And I'm like, well, it's in the script, so we're going to put you in pineapple there. And we did.
And can you say what show that is?
Oh, it's TED TV. I think I can say what it is. I just think I can't tell you the scripts, I guess. But
yeah,
there's pineapple underwear in it. But
sure.
It's that Talking Bear. It's now a prequel of a 8-episode prequel to the movie. So
okay. Cool. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. It's very, very funny, I think.
So here's a question. What's the strangest thing you found in the pockets of a returned wardrobe item?
I did find a dick pic, a Polaroid.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, oh, do we have to figure out who wore this?
I was not.
You wanted it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But
I wasn't either when I was clearing out the pockets of that robe. I'm like, wow. And that was when it was Polaroid. So.
Oh, geez. And so I was going to say, it was in the pocket of a man's garment or a woman's garment?
It was a robe that somebody wore to get their makeup on Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I don't know who wore the robe.
Yeah. Oh boy. So Marie almost always wore layers. Did you see or tape the top shirt to the bottom shirt so it didn't fly open? Did you sew? Did you sew or tape?
Never had to do that for Marie. No, she was very careful with her clothes. They hardly looked worn when they were done.
Okay, great. So I mean,
the tank top went long. The tank top was long to her hip, so it was you just don't see it because it was the exact same fabric of the pants.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice smooth line, but everything just stayed the way it was.
Awesome. And now here, Anna from Annabelle, who had gone to many of our episodes. I took the tour. The wardrobe department was amazing. Wish we could have spent more time there. Yes. On Tom's wardrobes. Oh, okay. So here's a question on Tom's wardrobe picture. So I'm going to open a script in a sec. What do the letters and numbers? So we're going to have you decode what I, as a complete non-expert in the wardrobe, since that's coming up in a question, were you surprised the first time you saw me holding up a wardrobe script?
I was like, wait a minute. And it was fun because it was the Polaroids. It was the old days.
Yeah.
And I would draw little pictures of Marie's earrings to make sure I got the right earrings next time if we ever went back.
Yeah.
I don't think our show ever went back and reshot almost anything.
Yeah.
But you never know. So you have to. And Marie has a lot of gold earrings with diamonds and, so you had to make sure you had the right one.
Yeah. So what Mary Ellen's talking about, if, it never happened, but should they go, Mary Ellen, we got to shoot scene C again from this. Can you get her earrings? And you're like, okay. Does anyone remember what ear? So they have to take pictures. And just for people, I'll find pictures of you on the set, but usually Mary Ellen and there were the three that there was Sonia, Ashley, you, Simon Took. You would have a Polaroid. I don't think Simon had a Polaroid around his waist.
No, God, no.
So
his work is done.
Yeah, so I should say, just not to bring the room down, but Simon Took is no longer with us. And Ashley, because when I first reached out to you, you said, well, you really should talk to Ashley. Ashley's been there since the beginning, but Ashley is not on Instagram. So, and your experience is phenomenal, but they would have, not Simon, but they would have, they'd have a Polaroid. They'd come in, and I've said this many times when they look at the when I show the picture, I go, remember, they're just trying to document. They want to get in, not distract in any way, and get out. So that's why you can't judge those photos on. You can judge them on how well do they capture the wardrobe. Not is someone smiling or looking at the camera, because the worst thing that could happen is Mary Ellen goes in, lights off a flash. Phil goes, I'm trying to talk. That's the nightmare for a wardrobe person.
We would wait till they were off, and we'd say flashing. And so they wouldn't get looking that we didn't want to blind anybody looking at the camera.
Yeah. And flashing also, because the lighting department goes, when they see a flash, they go, what did we just lose? We just lost a globe over this. And then Mary Ellen has to go, it was actually me taking a picture. Who made Robert's yellow suit? Were you there?
They brought fabric. I actually brought the fabric too. He has a tailor that he used, his personal tailor, because when you're 6'8", you have a personal tailor.
Right.
Over on Robertson in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
A super nice guy, and all we had to do was drop off
the material.
and it was done in 2 days.
And just wow. And just for the workflow, because I don't know if you've seen Exporting Raymond. I recommend it. It's Phil doing Raymond in Russia. Okay. It's the
It's so funny. Yes, it's brilliant.
Right. And the reason for you is the perfect person to bring it up is on the show, we talked about the showrunner is the head of the show. They have the most power. In this documentary, Phil is getting a lot of gruff from the head of wardrobe in Russia. And so now you're meeting Mary Ellen here, how nice Mary Ellen is. So if the thought of Mary Ellen going up to Phil and saying, I don't think Patty Heaton should dress this way. This is a mistake. To Phil, it's incomprehensible. It's incomprehensible.
I'm
It's
sweating just thinking of that situation. Yeah.
yeah, and just for those of you, yeah, watch the movie. But what the woman was saying is, the wife is on TV, and when you're on TV, you dress up. And Phil had to say, yes, but she's a housewife. She's not a woman on TV. She's not on TV, even though she's on TV.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Well, and so, sorry, going back to Brad's mustard-colored suit, which is one of the most iconic pieces of clothing. When you found who found that material, and whoever found it, did they go, what do you think of this? Like, did you guys go, I think we have it?
I think I remember seeing like 6 or 7 hideous colored yellows and golds, and like, is it Gouldens? Is it French's? Is it Dijon? Is it? And then I'm sure Phil picked out the perfect mustard color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why I brought that up, because occasionally the wardrobe department would come into the writer's room, and you would see, or, come down to show Phil something because Phil was too busy. And
Yeah.
so the writer, so we'd be there, and all of a sudden, did you ever come in the writer's room, Mary Ellen?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been the one. It's all Ashley and Simon would have done.
Right. Okay. So then you'd be sitting there at the writer's room, and very seldom do we have outside people in the writer's room, because you don't want to disturb the writers so we can write. And so then Simon would come in and be like, and there'd be, here's the raincoat that we're looking, they'd show Phil, and Phil would be like, okay, this one and this one. But that brings me up to, wow, we're so going to run out of time, Mary Ellen. But for example, here's a battle that I think, a good-natured fight. There were points, and somebody asked the question here, did the wardrobe change as the characters' arc changed throughout the 9 seasons? And I'll just say, there were times when, in real life, Patty Heaton was pregnant. And so we had a flashback, and then she's no longer pregnant. So she's going a little bit more, dressing a little bit, I don't know what the term would be. And so the problem with Patty is she's a very beautiful woman, and she can't look, she can't look stunning where people go, how is this woman with Ray?
Well, yeah. Well, we still say that sometimes.
Yeah.
But then
I won't.
Anna, you realize, oh my God, Ray deserves it all, I guess.
Yes. The battle that I'm saying is Patty Heaton as an actress wants to look beautiful. And to some degree, there's a little tug of war there of going, okay, but not too beautiful. I mean, it's a good problem to have when you're too beautiful, And so, but do you remember those type of discussions in any way with Patty, or trying to,
I think Patty was always really about the character, frankly. She wanted to look nice, and she knew what color she looked good in and everything. But she's like, she never was, she had her chances to look beautiful, and she used those, like that dress that everyone was talking about today with the kind of golden green dress with the print, time when she got to like show off a little, and that's a treat.
Yeah. And that just because we're talking about, that's a dress that you buy off the rack and then tailor.
Yes, exactly. And that would have been Neiman Marcus, I'm sure. And
pretty yeah. And so is almost everybody's wardrobe, whether it's off the rack or not, is it tailored?
Yeah, we try to make it, like, I just think that's that's what makes it look finished in a little bit. I always say, everything can come in a little bit, like, even if it's a 1/4 inch on each side, it just will like nip in the waist. I got good at altering Raymond's pants to make them look nice, and because he's so comfortable, but you want the whole thing. We want pride in what everybody looks like too. So if we can make it a little better, we always do.
So I hear I see a lot of comments about, they go, how come they're not in sweatpants more? How come they're always looking so nice? And they are in sweatpants, Patty's in sweatpants when it serves the character, but in general, you do want them to look nice.
Yeah, it's an art form. It's an art form. It's not real life. It's art. And even if it's, I know it's supposed to be, I don't wear sweatpants. I won't wear sweatpants to the grocery store, because it's when you meet somebody. You don't want to be in sweatpants in the grocery store.
Well, I will say, I know Seinfeld had a quote about it. Whether it's real life or in his act, but he's like, "What are sweat? When you're wearing sweatpants, you're just telling the world you've given up."
Yes,
You know, and
exactly.
so I think look. We've lived long enough where we've seen this cyclical thing where you had this fashion of the 40s, which looks timeless, to me. Then you had the fashion of the 60s. The 40s and 50s look fashion. Then the 60s, and then the 70s. We've seen it, and yeah, some of it's horrific, but you do want your characters, unless you're really characterizing. Jerry on Seinfeld could have been in sweatpants a lot. You know what I mean? Like you're not. It's not.
Jerry Seinfeld owns sweatpants. I don't know.
I would be shocked if he did
Yeah.
wear them. All right, Mary Ellen, because you're going to have to come back, but I'm going to open up a script. Okay, when I don't have a guest. All right, let me just see. What was Patricia Heaton's reaction when she saw the lingerie she'd be wearing with Ray in silk boxers? Was that The Power of No, I think?
Oh.
That was when she had to put body paint on her,
Sure, she's a little Irish girl. She's very pale.
Pale, yeah. But that was, I'm sure Patty was fine with it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll ask Patty when she comes on. But, anything for the comedy.
Yes.
And she looked good. All right. So now, Mary Ellen, this is a binder. Okay. It's backwards. It's backwards because it's Instagram. Now, usually if I don't have a guest, because I don't want to waste time, this is The Bachelor Party. Okay. This is written.
Great.
Yeah. It happens to be written by me, Ray, and Mike Royce. Again, backwards. So now, this is a chart which again, backwards. I know.
Yep.
Who made that chart?
That would have been Ashley. She was at the first day right before the meeting.
Okay. And so that is, I'm just going to tell people because it's frustrating to read it backwards. It's all of the characters' names and it's all of the scene numbers. So it says teaser, scene A, B, and then tag. Wow, there are not many scenes in this.
No.
Okay.
Great.
And so the number 1 and 2, what does that mean?
That's the first costume, and then they change for the next scene, that other scene. And
Okay.
Costume of the day. So 2 costumes for almost everybody there.
Okay. Okay, great. And then only 1, for Peter and Hank. So now I go into, there's Ray. Let's look at Patty because she's easier on the eyes than Ray. So now here's a page. There's Patty in the kitchen. And it says there's change number 1, scene A, right?
Yes.
And then it says set is
interior, their bedroom.
Let's see what it says.
In Deborah's bedroom. Right?
Yep, interior of Ray and Deborah bedroom, even though she's in the kitchen. And then
funny.
Yeah, and then there's the notes. It's all backwards again, but that's a description of what she's wearing.
Yes. So we would write 2 buttons open on the neck, like we might say 2BO, blouse 2BO, cuffs done, and then sweater open center front, untucked or tucked. We'd write things like that.
Okay.
Like, see how that's like, yeah, she's got
like
untucked t-shirt there. So we talk about that.
Right. So that's great. And there she is again. That's her second. That's number 2. That's the tag. Interior Ray and Deborah's kitchen, I think it says. And then there we're looking at her earrings.
Her earrings, right.
Right. And then again, the same notes, which is just description of what she's wearing and how she's wearing it.
Yes.
And occasionally you would put what it is, who the designer is. Let me get to Marie. Okay, here we go to Doris. So there's Doris wearing.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that blouse. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's the notes on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, backwards. And I'll post these pictures for everybody watching. I'll post these pictures so you can see and it won't be backwards.
And we don't even fill in some of the things because it's always the Vicky V top and bottom.
Vicky V.
Yeah, so you don't even blouse it is and it's on there.
Yeah.
You don't even have to write it.
So then and there were a ton of extras in this and now here's some special guests which are Ray's father
Oh, wasn't that
and Phil's father.
Wasn't that the best?
Yes. Now, would occasionally people you'd say, bring your own wardrobe, or no?
Not very often. Once in a while, we might say if you have a favorite pair of shoes, or if they're cast the same day they work nowadays, that we do that a lot more. And we just say, just bring your favorite jeans and a pair of shoes. But very seldom. We like to dress them head to toe for the most part. I think it's
Yes. Okay, Donnell, one of our biggest fans, writes this. The wardrobe on ELR is perfect, all caps, one hiccup. It's odd that Deborah's red leopard print wrap dress in PT&A, considered so, quote, that's from the show, slutty, is the same dress in the Bird episode at the conservative McDougal's. Interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
It's interesting, but it's Ray. I'll say this as a writer. It's Ray who has a problem with it, and Ray lies about it. And so it is a good point, but Ray has fabricated. So none of the other wives, none of the PTA people made any comments. Ray made the comment.
Oh, that's so it is.
Yeah.
Considers it a good dress to wear.
Yes, she looks good. Tom never misses a chance to say Patty Heaton looks good. Yes, she looks good. That's why.
The best. She's the best person to work with. I worked with her on the middle too.
By the way,
ready for work, 100%, gets it done, walks away. It's all good. I mean, she's the pro.
Yeah, and she, I'm saying it just as a photographer and a man, great bone structure for photography.
Oh, that makes sense.
Her nose was like everything. Just she didn't have a bad angle, and so yeah. But yeah, I'm guilty of complimenting Patricia Heaton. All right, fine. Oh well, the middle. So a lot of middle fans here. Before we say goodbye, I know that Patty. There was a conversation. I know this isn't your department. She wore a wig on the middle because it made her life 1,000 times easier. And on Everybody Loves Raymond, she has magnificent hair, but it's a lot of work to,
And it was just a little piece. It was like the bangs.
Right. The front, the bangs. Yes.
An hour off her morning.
Yes, an hour off her morning, which you can understand. Now, Mary Ellen, I have a question. I only have these because these were going in the dumpster, which that's what you do. Yeah. That's right. Otherwise, and so I'm very happy that I saved all of those Polaroids because for me, it's a time machine to go back and see that.
Yeah, and it was we were producing amazing work, and to just throw it all out is kind of heartbreaking. But I know that we threw out hundreds from Star Trek too. I mean, I know. I know.
That is that's hard, incomprehensible to me. So, all right.
Work is on TV every day, so that's really what we were all working for, is that final piece. So.
Yeah. All right. Everybody Loves Raymond is the best show ever. Please respond to big fan. There you go. Yes, Bobby, I'm glad that I was able to save it too. And now we talked to Mary Ellen, who was there at Ground Zero. We have a lot more to talk about, Mary Ellen. Maybe you can come back again because I just love, there's so many people that love just Doris's earrings. When I post those pictures, I took a couple pairs of those. Oh, you know what? The next time you're back, we're going to talk about what happens at the end. Yeah, when you come back, we'll talk about what happens at the end of a series, what happens to the clothes, what happened to the clothes on our show, who took them, who didn't take them, what you end up doing. All right, for our next video. Yeah,
that's fun. Yeah.
All right. Mary Ellen, so good to see you.
So good to see you.
I will reach out to you again, and thank you, all the fans. Thank you very much. I'll be posting a couple more pictures of from inside the script, and you'll be able to comment on our mugs, etc. And Mary Ellen will get you a mug as soon as they're going to be available before Christmas. We're going to force a mug on you that says I was a guest.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Talk to you later. Bye bye.